I sold my virginity to a wealthy businessman. My heart was racing. My knees even trembled a bit. I remember those feelings nearly a decade later. The nervous anticipation I felt as I walked across the hotel lobby and stood waiting for the elevator. I was wearing a little black dress, heels, and new lingerie. Everything about the outfit was out of character for me. I was 19 years old and fit from years spent playing soccer and basketball. Nobody would ever confuse me for a model, but I'm not unattractive. I was a part-time student working my way through college. I had a job working at an upscale hotel. The goal was to work my way up to an assistant manager position to get some of that coveted leadership experience on my resume. The hotel was on a golf course and catered primarily to executive business travelers. It wasn't the kind of place that your company puts you up when you're on the road. It's where the CEO of your company stays. We didn't have a uniform, but were required to dress professionally. That was typically a blouse and skirt for me. The clientele often liked to get flirty with the help. It was our job to go the extra mile. We flirted back, we smiled, we laughed at every unoriginal bad joke. Not just the women. The guys would kiss ass too. That kind of thing could lead to unwanted advances. Men often wanted to buy me a drink. The more confident ones would suggest more, like having a drink in their room. But I always declined, at least until the day I didn't. He was a regular client. He had a European accent. I don't know what he did, but he was at the hotel every other month. He always booked a suite. The starting price back then was $1,200 a night. That night he got in around 10 p.m. He was obviously stressed and complained about his day of travel. I was alone at the front desk. He mentioned he would use some company to help him relax. I politely declined. Then he offered me $500. The money was tempting. I was on a partial scholarship for sports and athletics, but it wasn't enough. I was struggling to pay my bills and tuition. But $500 wasn't going to make me sleep with a stranger. I told him there were clubs nearby where that offer would work. "I'm not looking for professionals," he said. "I don't like dirty women." I declined again. He opened his wallet and started counting out bills. He had over $600 and a handful of euros. He offered it all. I turned him down a third time. He persisted. "I can't sell my virginity for $600. I finally blurted out. I was sure he'd stop after that and be a little more respectful. But the opposite happened. He offered me $2,500, then $3,000, then $5,000 for a full night. I was overwhelmed. I told him I needed to think about it. But I also just wanted him to go away. I was on the desk again the next night. When he came by, I accepted his offer. He must have expected it. He slipped me an envelope with the original $600 in bills and told me to dress well and buy new lingerie. I kept most of the money. I bought a dress on sale at Nordstrom Rack and lingerie at a boutique store. He got a room downtown in a different hotel. I'd told him it was against the rules to socialize with guests at work. Every nerve tingled as I walked in. I'd never felt like I might be sick. He sat by the window after he let me in. "Undress," he commanded. There were no niceties or icebreakers. I knelt to take off my heels. "Not like that," he said. "Stand. Take your time." I'd been a tomboy most of my life. I felt awkward. I didn't want to blow it. I took off the dress. He admired the lingerie and told me to spin around for him. I did what he said. "There is nothing like deflowering a woman," he told me. "It's special, to be a woman's first, the one she will never forget." He kept talking for what seemed like an eternity. I don't know if he wanted to savor the moment or he was just full of himself and thought he was impressing me. I just wanted to get it over with. The actual act wasn't very sensual. He was slow and methodical. He knew what he was doing, though. He wasn't bad or selfish or hurried. He kept telling me how I would remember that night for the rest of my life. Obviously, he wasn't wrong, at least not so far. He slept soundly after. I tossed and turned most of the night. In the morning, he ordered room service, but I didn't have an appetite. Dining with him wasn't part of the agreement. The money didn't last long, of course. At that age, it seemed like a lot, but I had so many expenses with school. In retrospect, $5,600 doesn't seem like enough money to sell your virginity to a man who obviously got off on corrupting people with his wealth. But I wasn't really a virgin anyway. I'd only said it because I thought he'd leave me alone. Who knew it would only lead to him upping the offer?
Story number 2.
20 years ago, I met a woman who I had an instant attraction to. I found out she was recently divorced. I pursued her. She seemed interested. I asked her out, we started dating. Eventually, we moved in together. This all happened over the course of 2 years. We were supposedly taking it slow because she was still sensitive about the breakup of her marriage. I thought things were great, and I was really in love. I was planning on asking her to marry me if things worked out with us living together. After just 2 months, I came home and she had packed all her things and informed she was going back to her ex and they were going to work things out. I was hurt, but I knew she still had feelings for him, so I wished her well and tried to be understanding. She said she waited until I was home to tell me in person, which I thought was weird since she decided to pack her belongings first. I had a vague feeling that she was just going to ghost me, and I came home before she could leave. She got back with her ex, and I started dating other women again. After about a year, she contacted me just to see how I was doing. We talked, and she let me know things didn't work out for her and her ex, and she wanted to see me again. I was still into her, so I agreed, and we started dating again. Another 6 months went by, we moved back in together, and everything was going great, and I still wanted to settle down with her, and she was also feeling the same. Once again, after about 4 months this time, she comes to me and lets me know that she wants to date other men, because she was still young, and in her whole life she had only been with her ex-husband and with me, and she wanted to know what was out there. Again, I wished her well and I moved out. She wanted to be roommates while she dated. I couldn't do that, so I moved out. I knew we would never be together after that and made up my mind to move on, but I was hurting. Not even 2 weeks went by, and I found out she had met another guy at her work. She was a bartender, and he was the reason she wanted to start dating again, and didn't seem to care when I told her I was moving out. I don't know how long they were talking before I left, but he moved in not even 2 weeks later. When I found this out, I was hurting even more. It took 2 years before I could convince her to move in with me, but only 2 weeks for this guy. I eventually start to get over it after about 6 months. I'm still sad, but seeing other women. Around that time, one of her friends contacted me and wanted to speak to me. I was confused because she was her friend, not mine, and I didn't feel we were particularly close. So we meet, and I'm dreading that it was a setup, get me and her friend back together again. I still had feelings for her, but no longer wished to pursue a relationship. She starts the conversation by saying that it's not her place, but she felt I deserved better. She goes on to tell me that her friend, my ex-girlfriend, had confided in her a long time ago that she wasn't really into me at all. But I was a good guy with a solid career and secure future to settle down with in case nothing better came along. I was stunned by this, and it was like someone flipped a switch. Instantly, my feelings for this girl were gone. Thinking back, it all made sense. I knew it was true. I always knew I wasn't her first choice, and I was okay with that. But to find out that I was her last choice killed whatever feelings I had left for her. I thanked her and paid the check, and as I was leaving, she warned me that things didn't go well with the other guy, and her friend had mentioned getting back together with me. Sure enough, a couple weeks went by. She started texting me asking how I was doing, sending me provocative selfies, and even showing up at my usual hangouts. I ignored the texts and pretended not to see at the club, and made a quick exit the first time. The second time I was with a date, and then I noticed that when she saw that, she made the hasty exit that time. She seemed to get the message after that and didn't contact me for a couple years after that. I'm ashamed to say the last time she contacted me, I felt a grim satisfaction that she seemed desperate and lonely while hinting we should see each other again. Not going to lie, I still harbor resentment. I'm settled down with a wonderful woman now, and she knew that when she contacted me, and still did anyway.